Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Today we will start with chapter number 10 in therapeutic communication, which is the developing therapeutic relationship. So in this session we will see, continue with our objective, and we will cover those objectives from the course. So the first objective, we will discuss the concept of therapeutic communication. Then we will describe the characteristic of client-centered communication, then applying the concept of client-centered communication. The fourth one, we will discuss the active listening responses used in therapeutic communication, then discuss the use of verbal responses as communication strategies, then describe the other form of communication used in nurse-client relationship. So those are the objectives that we will cover in this session. About therapeutic communication, again, we previously defined therapeutic communication, and we come in touch with the term which is related to therapeutic communication. Now also we will continue with that. So the term therapeutic communication, it is first coined or started by the Jürgen Rush in 1961. This term is referred to interactive dynamic responses. So it is an interactive dynamic responses entered into by the nurse and the client, by the nurse or by the health care provider and the client, for the purpose of achieving identified health-related goals. So it is dynamic process of exchanging of information, of communication between the nurse or health professionals, and the purpose of that, it is to achieve the identified health-related goal. So it is for the achievement, the purpose of it is to achieve the therapeutic goal. Therapeutic communication is primary means of exchanging of information. So it is a means of changing of information with the client about health matter. So the main concern of the therapeutic communication is the health matters and health problem, planning treatment approach, how we can plan the treatment plan and how we can approach it and how we will apply it. Each consensus, so it is a consensus between the health profession and health professionals and the client about the treatment design. So the treatment plan design, it is a mutual consensus with the client and the health care provider. Conduct treatment activities and conducting the treatment activities and evaluate the clinical outcome. So to sum it or summarize it, it is a primary means of exchanging information between the health care provider or the nurse or the client and the client from the other side, in order to come to a mutual agreement or a consensus in the plan of treatment and how we will approach the treatment plan, how we can also design the treatment plan, and how we can conduct the treatment activity and evaluate the effect of them. About the characteristic of the therapeutic communication. There are main 4 characteristics of therapeutic communication. The one of them, which is it has role and boundaries. So the role and boundaries of the therapeutic communication, which is mostly are focused on the treatment plan and the patient treatment plan. So the purpose of it is to achieve a good treatment plan and the better treatment plan for our client. The second thing, that it is individualized strategies, because it is similar, it is a combination, or it is a continuation of the nursing process. So it is concentrating in the individual himself, and the strategies that we are using, it is different according to our client. So the thing which might be valid for patient number, patient X, it might not be valid for patient Y. So there are a difference, and it is individualized. So each individual, each client is having his own plan on the way of communication, which depend on many factors on the client side, that will in order to help him to understand and to cooperate in the nursing care plan. And also, it is a goal directed. So we put the goals for treatment, and it is the communication, it is within the direction of, toward the direction of that goal, to achieve that goal that we put for the treatment plan. And it is client-centered. So it is the main concentration is in the client. The information that we are taking mostly, and the most valid information, it is taken from the patient himself, and he is the center of the communication and the center of the treatment. So the purpose of therapeutic communication, there are many purposes of therapeutic communication. The established therapeutic provider-client-center relationship. So in order to establish and to start with therapeutic provider, the care provider, to start a client-centered relationship with our client. Identify the client also concern and problem. So we have our plan, it depends upon the patient or the client concern and his problem, his health problem. Assist the client also perception of the problem, how he is perceive that problem, and the angle that he is seeing the problem from it. Recognize the client need and guide the client toward satisfying and socially accepted solution. So the characteristic of the solution for that problem, it has to be satisfying the client socially, and also it has to be socially accepted solution. Now, this is the essential component of communication, which is the essential component for any communication with two persons. So there is the communication, it has sender, message, and also channel of communication, and receiver or receiver. So the sender and receiver, both of them, they are having their own cultural norms, thinking processes, they are having their own emotions, so from both sides. So the receiver is having also cultural norms, analysis, he will analyze the message, and which is a thinking process, or conceptualizing the message. He is having also his emotion, his own emotion. He is having his listening skills, so in order to understand the message. So And there are many factors that, or many other things that it interfere with the communication, which is one of them is the personal space between the sender and the receiver. And the personal space is depend upon your position, and it depends upon the care or the purpose or the goal of the care that you are going to do. So it might be from a social distance to an intimate contact with the client when we are doing direct procedure on the patient. But how we approach it, we are approaching it in order to avoid any problems. We have to communicate with our client properly and explaining what we are going to do to him in a proper way, and we have to also take his ideas in consideration when we are doing the thing. Eye contact from both sides, from the receiver and the sender. Overt and covert messages. The direct messages, which is the overt message, and the indirect messages that it might be conveyed by the words or the indirect word or terms, or it might be seen through the body movement or the facial expression. They are using word and sound. They are using also, they might use touch. So those are the components of the communication process. And there are other factors that might be there. So sender, receiver, there is message, and from the sender, then after he received the message, sorry, there will be a feedback to the receiver, which will show us if he understands what we were talking about or not. And there is a context from here that we have to pass it to or a message that we have to pass it to the receiver, then a context for the feed, context within the client himself that will interfere with the feedback which is coming. So this is the component of communication. Now, the factor affecting communication, there are many factors that affect the communication. One of them, which is the personal factor. In the personal factor, one of them, it is the readiness to communicate. Is our client ready to communicate with us? So we have to choose the time, the proper timing, and the proper psychological and other conditions that might affect the patient readiness. So the readiness is an important. If I am not ready to communicate with others, in this case, I might not understand that message properly. So it will be wasting our time. So also, it has to be eye contact should be there during the giving the message. The purpose of that also in order to observe the client non-verbal cues that will be shown in the patient face and the patient movement, which also interfere with the communication and also the receiving of the message. Genuine respect. Respect. I have to respect my client, and that respect that should come from inside. So being ready to explain, being ready to communicate, being ready to give care, and that respect also, it will be shown through many things. One of them, which is might be when we are calling the client with the favorite name that he like to be called with, when we are saying some words that we are here ready for giving care for you, you will take the proper care, inshallah. So those words, it will help the client or might affect the patient, or he might see that you are respecting him, you are going to give care for him properly, and if he feels the respect also, he will communicate properly and he will give us the needed information that we want. A clear, concise message. The message, it should be clear and it should be concise, not a very detailed one. And it has to be short and it has to be clear, easily understandable by our client according to his level of education, according to culture, according to language, and other factors. Environmental factor. In the environmental factor, we have the time. So, if the patient is having pain, if our client is having pain, and we are coming to take assessment for other things rather than the pain, did you feel that the patient will answer your question while he is in pain? So if he has, at the time, if he is having pain, so we have to concentrate on that assessment of pain and how we can help him in relieving of that pain. In that case, he will give the information, the needed information, and he will communicate with us well in order to solve his first problem. After that, we can take other information and other assessment that we want to take from our client. Also, do you feel that it is a good time for giving some kind of procedure during the visiting hour? So during the visiting hours might not be the time for communicating with the client, unless if we want to assess something which is might be known by the family rather than the client. Privacy. In case of, you know, that most of the world, you might have 6 patients in the same room. Do you feel that you can do the assessment and take information of some sensitive thing from your client while he is in a room, even if the screen is there? Screen will not provide that. Yes, it will provide visual privacy, but it will not provide the privacy to see what is there if the issue is a sensitive one. So in this case, we have to keep the patient in a private privacy, and in order to give the or to take the information from the patient. Then also the space in between us and the client. So the space, which is the comfortable space between us and the other that we are communicating with him. So sometimes when we are coming closely to the one that we are communicating with him, you feel that he is putting his body slightly back. This means that he is not comfortable with the space in between, that you are approaching his space, individual space. Also, for the space, in order, before entering, you have also to get the permission that also in order to avoid the interference with the space of your client. We'll come to the barrier of effective communication when there are many factors that might interfere with the communication, and the communication it might be ineffective with our client from the client's side if he is having pain. So the pain itself, it will affect our patient and he will not be able to understand the messages that we are sending to him. So first, what we have to do, we have to control the pain. And the concentration in communication should be on the pain until the pain is resolved. After that, we can go to other part. Physical discomfort. Any physical discomfort, like if the temperature is, the environmental temperature is not suitable, so also it will affect our understanding and our attention to the messages. Even in the class, if there is no AC, if the room is very hot, so your mind is scattering and thinking of that more than the lecture that you are receiving. The second thing, which is unable to understand language or terminology. If the patient is not, or our client is not speaking the same language. So in this case, we have to have someone to translate for us. And translation also sometimes it might not be exactly proper as if we are taking the information directly from our patient. Also, because of that, when we are dealing with the patient or who is speaking another language, we have to speak in a slow, in a simple terms. Anyway, don't use terminology because it is considered as a jargon that cannot be understood from the patient. So term which we feel that it is not cannot be understood by the client, it should not be used at all. So we have to choose a simple terminology that can be understandable and understood by our client according to his education, according to his culture, according to his language, according to his age. So all the factors should be considered when we are communicating with the client. Strong emotion. When strong emotion is there, this will destroy the process of therapeutic communication and the mature or the ability to think properly. So avoid strong emotion. Feeling defensive and insecure. If the patient is feeling that he is insecure, there might be something that might cause any hazard or affect him. So in this case also he will not give the proper information. If the patient is confused, confusion it might be from the illness itself, if it is affect his conceptualization, if it is affect the brain, if it is due to some toxic material that he is taking, that he talk, if it might be due to physiological changes, and also like in ketoacidosis, like in alteration on all body antibody elements. In this case also it might lead to affect in case of high urea level, in case of renal failure. Sometimes also we might find the patient is confused, deprived from privacy. If the patient feels that there is no privacy, he is in an open world and there are sensitive things that he wants to which affect his health, and he cannot also discuss it. Cognitive deficit also, in this case, if the patient, the client ability to understand what we are going to talk. So if there is limitation of cognitive ability of the client. There are also another barrier or effect on communication when the nurse or the healthcare provider is not fully engaged with the client. Preoccupation with the personal agenda. If the healthcare provider is having his own agenda and he is occupied with his own agenda, so he is not concentrated on the patient problem and the patient assistance. Also, being in a hurry. If you want just to take, you feel that you didn't have a time to spend it with your client, and you want to do the thing in a very hurry manner. In this case also, it will affect the client ability to give you the proper information. Making assumption about the client, in that this client is so and so, because of that it might not be the thing, so I understand his case in my own view, not from the patient view. Defensive, when we are being defensive, or when we are thinking ahead of the next question. When we ask question and at the same time we are thinking of the next question, so we are not receiving the answer of the patient or the client in a proper way. Client emotionally aggressive. Also, if the client is aggressive, in this case also it will affect the ability of communication. There is what we call it self-awareness and therapeutic use of self. So I have to understand myself, and I have to understand my ability to communicate with others in order to maintain or a proper contact and proper relationship and proper ability or the best ability to give and take information from the patient. So self-awareness, it is a process of developing an understanding of one's own values, beliefs, thought, feeling, attitude, motivation, and prejudice, strength, and limitation, and how these qualities affect others. So every one of us is having his own understanding, is having his own values, is having his different beliefs and thought. We have our feeling, we have our attitudes, we have our motivation, we have our prejudices, our strength, and our limitation, and in dealing with it. So if we have limitation, we have to work on it in order to overcome those limitations and communicate well with our client. Yes, we have our own value, and the other, they are having their own values, they are having their own beliefs. So we have to understand their own values and their own beliefs and their feeling and attitudes, and it has to be considered in order to understand and in order to deal with others in a proper way and communicate with others in a proper way. Therapeutic use of self. The nurse beginning to use aspect of his or her personality, so and experience So this will come with the experience, values also, feeling, intelligence, and need, their coping skills also, and perception to establish relationship with the client. So all of those, it should be considered, or it will be used, and it will be utilized to give a proper communication with our client, understanding that also from all his own side those values. The physical behavioral cues. In the physical behavioral cues, we have the emblems. The emblems, which is gesture or body motion, like handshaking and some other sign language. Handshaking might be due to if the patient is not feeling comfortable. If the patient is, the client is fearing from a condition. So we have to, always we have to have an eye contact and observing also the non-verbal cues from our client. We have to use illustration, which is an action combining and exemplify the meaning of verbal communication, like smiling when the thing is pleasant, or in order when we are communicating with our to show that this might be showing respect, might be showing that relaxation, that we are I am ready to understand, and I am ready to listen to you. Affect also display, which is facial expression and emotional affect, alert and expression, So leaning forward when we are talking with our client, it means that we are here, we want to listen to you. Facial expression also, when my facial expression is relaxed, also in this case, it means that I am ready to listen. But if I'm tight, if must face, in this case also, it is not a pleasant thing for the client to give information for me. Regulators, which is non-verbal communication, which is just to the course of communication, which is either sometimes nodding the head while communicating with others in order to say continue. Adapters, which is repetitive non-verbal action, like food tapping. And that it might say that I feel fed up from that communication. It is a very long communication session, or it might, you might understand that I am under stress. Physical characteristic, which is appearance of the person. The physical characteristic, which is the appearance of the person, also will give a message, like the height, body shape, the odor of the client. So the height, also and the body shape, it will give that if he is athletic person, if he is weak, if he is well ill, the body odor, it will you feel that it is due to sometimes the kind of the disease itself, like in case of ketoacidosis, you smell the ketone or the acetone smell from the client, or the urea smell from the client if he is having renal failure. So this will also show a sign, a cue toward the diagnosis and toward how we can evaluate the client medically. So the facial expression, if the patient is having pain, how he is putting his hand in a side of his abdomen. Sometimes if he is having a cramp, or in case of ureteric colic, you find that the patient is moving and cannot settle. Client-centered communication. Client-centered communication are viewed as equally important informational resources and collaboration in healthcare. Because most of the information we have to take it directly from our client or from the relative. But so, and the plan of treatment it depends upon the client himself. The information that we get from the client, the assessment that we did on the client himself. So all of these, it will be affecting the plan of our treatment. Client want me always, every client, every person, when I am having any problem, either if it is a health problem or any other problem, I feel that I had to find someone who is able to listen to me, who is willing to listen to me. If I found somebody is willing to listen to me properly and understand my problem, in this case, I will feel relaxed. Involved in their own care. Anyone, I didn't refer to be obliged on a plan or regime of care. I have to be a part of that plan. When I am a part of that plan, in this case, it is easy for me to follow that plan. But if I feel that the plan is imposed on me, in this case, I might not go with that plan. Able to choose treatment. So if there is a variety of way of treatment or variety of procedure, in this case, we have to explain to the client the effect of each one and the benefit of each one and the side effect of that, and he is the responsible one to choose from that. Fostering the healing relationship. So we have to concentrate in the healing toward our objective, toward the healing relationship, and our communication, it is toward the process or to achieving the health goal rather than any other thing. Then exchanging information between us and our client, depending on the situation, responding to the patient emotions or the client emotion, making decision, and that decision also, making decision, it should be a mutual decision between us and our client. Self-management, I have to manage myself in order to communicate with the patient properly. In therapeutic communication also, from the most important thing in therapeutic communication, we have to be attentive listening. We have to listen to every single word from our client, because if we miss any word from the patient, it might change the regime of treatment. So understand every single word. Try to understand the implicit and the thing, the implicit thing from the patient messages. Try to understand also the facial expression and the body movement. Use all senses. It is the not T or the T. So we have to use all senses in order to understand the patient message and understand the patient way in while communicating with him. The most important technique in nursing, it is important technique in nursing thing while we are using or all senses basic to all other technique require energy and concentration. So you need to concentrate on the patient, receiving a total message rather than bits and pieces from the message, verbal and non-verbal. So active listening and using all senses is not key hearing. Most important technique in nursing, the therapeutic communication is the most important technique in nursing because depending on all the other activities depend upon the communication process. If we succeed in communicating with our client, definitely we will succeed in achieving the therapeutic plan for our patient. It is basic for all other technique, so we cannot do anything in our life without communicating with others. So we cannot go blindly with the client and doing something without communicating with them. Require energy and concentration, receive the total message as verbal and non-verbal. Applying the concept of client-centered communication. So building a rapport with the client, which is enter the client, we have to trying to enter the client's space by building a rapport and the relationship with him, welcoming the client by warm welcoming. It will help in the starting rapport. Respectful tone of and direct eye contact. Excuse me. You can come and take your thing, respectful tone and direct eye contact with the client, observation of the client, verbal and non-verbal communication cues also. Then asking questions, and we took previously in the previous session the three types of question. The first one, which is open-ended question. The open-ended question, we are asking it, and tell me, in order to receive the detail from the patient, tell me about why you are coming to the hospital today. What's the problem that what kind of problem that you are having? Then focus question, which is when the symptom start. So when he's telling us that I am having severe pain and that pain he was describing it. So we can ask him when that pain is started. So it is one of the focused question related to the thing that the patient or the messages that the patient is trying to give us. Or can you localize, show me the site of the pain? So this is also a focused question. Closed-ended question, which is the answer is usually yes or no, which is used mostly in emergency. Do you have pain? Yes or no. So this is the. Then we have the guideline for effective verbal expression in the nurse-client relationship. And for effective verbal expression, the nurse will have to identify or define the unfamiliar term and concept. So all unfamiliar term should be explained simply to the client. Match content and delivery with each client. Match the content and delivery with each client for each when we want to do anything for our client, we have to match it with the client because each client is having different need from us. Developmental and educational level. It has to be considered when communicating with a client. Experimental frame of reference and learning readiness of the client. Keep the message, always we have to keep the message clear, concise. We have to be honest when we are giving any messages to we should not give what we call it, the false reassurance for our client. It has to be simple to understand, simple message that it can be understood easily. Put the idea in a logical sequence of related material. Relate the new idea to a familiar one that the patient is understanding when presenting new information. Repeat the key idea to be sure that the patient is understanding it well. Reinforce key idea with vocal emphasize and pause, that concentrating on that idea and vocally or giving pause on that. Keeping the language as simple as possible. Use vocabulary familiar to our client. Focus only in the essential element present in one idea at a time. So don't mix more than one idea at the same time. So finish with the first idea, then you can go to the second idea. Use as many sensory communication channels as possible for the key idea. So try to explain with all the channel of communication, using words, using facial expression, the vocal also alteration. Make sure that non-verbal behavior are supporting the verbal messages. So it has to be the verbal and non-verbal should be congruent with each other, and in order to give the ability to understand. Because if the verbal messages is different from the non-verbal messages, some of the clients, they are visual or having more visual understanding. So in this case, he might go toward the non-verbal message, and he will not understand the vocal messages as we need. Seek feedback to validate accurate responses of information. So we have to seek a feedback from our client. We can ask sometimes, can you summarize what we were talking about? Can you just summarize briefly what did you understand from those messages? Communication pattern, some clients like to give detailed information, a very detailed story. So, which sometimes containing some elements that is not necessary to be taught, but he will give the story and who was there when at home when the problem happened with him and how they dealt with him, and so he will give all details of the story. And some use the as a dramatic change, so it is like a series of like a story or a story of drama. Active listening responses. In active listening responses, you have to have preliminary cues and leading, body action, head nodding, leading leaning forward, those are cues that you are listening to the message. Clarification, asking for clarification by when you are attentive to the patient tone, you might ask, could you describe what's happened in sequence? Restatement, are you saying so and so? Did you meant by that? So, and then I will talk in order to validate that I'm understanding the same thing that the patient is want to me to understand. Paraphrasing also. Then, in this case, use our own word in order to validate that the patient is saying the same thing. Reflection. Do you feel feeling guilty because you were out when the accident happened? So this is the reflection. Why you are? Do you have that feeling because you were out? Summarizing. So summarizing, we were talking about so and so. So we will give a summary for what we were talking about. Silence. Silence here, we are keeping sometimes silence after giving a question or after giving certain context of health education in order to let the client understand that and give the feedback. Touch. Touch. Always we are concentrating on the touch. That touch, it has all social and psychological meaning that it might support the client and sometimes it might be understood in an inappropriate way. So we have to be sensitive when we are going to touch our client. It depends upon the health worker and the client. Are we from the same sex? Are we from the same age? Are we having a different? So all of this, if we are having different kind of values, coming from different culture, so this will be affected according to that. Negative listening response. In the negative listening response, false reassurance. False reassurance, if we are reassuring the client and we are giving a false thing. In this case, later he will discover that we were lying about him. So then he will not be able, he will not cooperate with us because he will feel that we were giving a false reassurance for him. Giving advice. Always people, they didn't like to take advice, too much advices from us. So if we are giving always just giving advices for the client, you have to do so and so in this way while you are doing it in this way. So it has to be a mutual relationship that the patient will understand it from our communication, and we can share the client in the thing that we want to reach to it. False interference by making an assumption about the client. Moralization. Moralization by expressing our own values in our patient. The patient might have different values in relation to the problem that he's having. Value judgment, approval or disapproval. Social also responses from a different society. So here it might be moralization if we are seeing the patient is taking alcohol, and in this case we consider it as a disease rather that it need to be treated rather than any other thing that provoke the social relationship. So the interview and relationship skills. In the interview, there are stages of the interview or phases of interview. In the phases, we have the first phase, which is orientation phase. In the orientation phase, the stages that we have to rapport and structuring with our client. The purpose of that is to build a working alliance with our client. So we start our relationship and we will explain to him what we are going to do. A skill here which is needed, basic listening and attention, information giving. So ability to give the proper information for our client. So we have to start the rapport with the client, start by receiving our client. We have to call him by his name, start to find out what we can help him with his problem. Then the interview phase. In the interview phase, it has the assessment, engagement, and beginning activities with our client. The strategies here, the strategies of gathering information and evaluation, defining the problem, identifying the problem, identifying the strength in our client and our strength also in order to give the care for the client. The purpose here is to determine how the client view the problem. So from his aspect of the client, how he is seeing the problem that he is having, identify values, beliefs, strength, and resolve problem and the problem healing and well-being. The skills which is needed, basic listening skill, attending on, and we can the ability to ask an open-ended question and verbal cues, understanding, and leads. In the planning activities, here we have to determine the outcome, what's needed to happen to reduce the self-care demand, when does the client want to go and to be discharged, to find out how the client would like to be, how would things be if the problem were solved. So what's after solving or reaching the outcome, what will happen. Attending and basic listening and also influencing and feedback. Implementation activity, which is explaining alternative and option, and the client has to choose from alternative to work toward resolution of the client's self-care need, influencing the feedback balance with attending and listening behavior. The termination phase, in the termination phase of the interview, we have the evaluation, generalized and transfer of learning, then to enable the changes in through the feeling and the behavior, or to evaluate the effectiveness of the changes in the modifying of self-care need. So, because there should be a change if the patient learning happens. The skills here, influencing and feedback and validation of the information. So this is in the interview, the phases of interview. So each session, or it has those phases, and the therapeutic communication, it has an end. Always it has to be having end. What's the nurse listen for? We listen for the content and tips from the patient. We listen to communication pattern of the client. We discrepancies in content and body language, vocalization also, feeling related, revealed in the personal voice also, the body movement and the facial expression. So, because the feeling, it will be expressed by the voice of the patient. It will affect the pitch of the voice, the body movement also, and the facial expression. If he is feeling fear, if he is having pain, if he is having a problem, all will be affected on the way of the sending a message. What is not being said? So we have to be attentive in order to see what's the patient is saying and what's the thing that it might be hidden and he did not say it, and why he did not say it, as well as what's being said. So the client preferred also a representational system, or auditory or visual or tactile. So we have to understand also the communication ability of the client. Is he from auditory that he like or he understand better if we are using the sound and voice and the words, or visual, depending on the expression, or tactile, using the touch. The nurse own inner responses also. The effect of communication produced in other involvement with the client. The verbal responses, matching responses should match the client messages in level of depth and meaning and language. Using also understandable language, always we have to use understandable language according to the patient level of education, according to the patient culture, according to the background of our patient client. Focusing also on the patient problem, always and in the client, rather than going outside. Personality, reality, presenting reality always. So we have to tell always the truth, being presenting reality only for our patient. Giving, always we have to give a feedback and asking for validation. Other form of communication, we said touch. We come in touch too many times, and we said that touch, it is helpful for some relationship and in dealing with our client according to his age, according to his sex, according to his background and the meaning of that touch. Metaphors, which is familiar images to promote understanding. Sometimes we can explain our message by showing a familiar image to our client. Sense of humor. Recognize the incongruent situation. Focus on the situation rather than, it has to focus on the situation rather on the client characteristic, because if we are laughing or making fun with the characteristic of the client, in this case, it will not be helpful. So we have to, it has to be with going with the situation. Reframing, like helping the family to view alcoholism as a disease rather than feeling it as a a social problem or other kind of problem. Cognitive behavioral strategies, helping client to think positively about his illness rather than thinking negatively and thinking of death, thinking of the bad consequence. Using technology in communication when it is needed and when, according to the patient ability to cope. Thank you for listening, and this is the end of our session. Thank you.